What happens when you leave everything behind and return to Africa after 20 years? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Layla, and here we talk about inner work, money, mindset, and the shifts, soft and bold, that help us create a life of freedom and purpose. 8 months ago, I left South Korea, where I had been living for years, to settle in Central Africa. What I first thought would be me moving full-time has turned into more of a hybrid lifestyle, settling down my luggage in Central Africa, investing locally, but also traveling internationally. And let me tell you, it hasn't been exactly what I expected. Some things have been, they've surprised me in the best way, I should say. And others have been a real wake-up call. So this Back to Africa journey has been enlightening so far. And today, I want to share with you some of the lessons, the surprises, the realities I've experienced along the way. All right, so let's start with a confession first. I realize I've become too bougie. And listen, I've always considered myself a chameleon. I can adapt to any situation, rough or luxurious, elegant or simple. I never thought of myself as someone who acts above certain things. Or so I thought. But since coming back, I've had to face the truth. There are just some things I cannot do. And if that makes me a snob or bougie, then so be it. For example, I cannot, for the life of me, get on a motorcycle. I know it is the main way people move around. It's affordable, it is fast, but for me, it is a no. It's way too dangerous. The drivers, sometimes they don't even have a license. They do not respect traffic rules. And honestly, I don't want to be squeezed up against strangers. It feels way too intimate. If a car is unavailable to drive me around, I would rather walk, if it's not too far, or take a private taxi alone. Again, the idea of cramming myself in with others just doesn't sit right with me. And that's the thing. These little choices are what reveal how comfort zones shift after living abroad. For many people who return with foreign money, it naturally creates a gap between them and the locals, not because they're trying to look down on people, but simply because they've adjusted to a different standard of living and standard of comfort. And that social divide, it's real. People feel it, people notice it, and sometimes they even resent it. And beyond money, there's also the question of belonging. You would think coming back means instant connection, instant homecoming, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you find yourself feeling like an outsider in the very place you come from. The way you talk, the way you move, even the way you think, it sets you apart. So the gap isn't just a social one or a financial one, it's also an emotional one. All right, so family members expecting financial support is something you hear a lot when people move back. Luckily, I don't really feel that pressure, but something else happened to me. Something I actually did not expect. It's like I switched into savior mode. Whenever I hear about people's problem, I feel this urge to fix them. I give money, I overtip to a point where even my mom has called me out asking, what is wrong with you? She told me I was doing way too much, that people might get, used to what I'm doing. And at first, I didn't even have a real sense of what the 𝗧𝗶𝗺, which is the currency here, was worth. To me, the amounts sounded so small until I started converting and realizing it wasn't so little after all. That's when I had to stop and ask myself the question, why am I doing this? Am I trying to buy people's love and affection? And the answer, luckily, is no, because these are people who either already love me or don't even know me at all. The real answer is actually quite simple. I just want to give people a chance. I want to be that answered prayer. I want to see a smile on someone's face, that little sign of relief that says, okay, at least for today, things will be fine. That's why I have invested in people's small businesses, just like I have given money for temporary relief. Sometimes it's just not about the amount, it's about showing someone that their struggle matters and that their effort is seen. Another thing I noticed when you come back is how much people watch you. Gossip travels fast and community eyes are everywhere. I personally keep a low profile. I don't go out too much. I don't meet a lot of people. And honestly, that works for me. I'm an introvert and I also have no plans to live in Central Africa full time. So I don't feel the pressure to build a big friends circle or a network. But then there is the darker side of it. You hear stories of people being poisoned. And guys, I am not joking, okay? Of jealousy turning ugly. Where you go, where you eat, who you hang out with, you have to be very careful. And I've had that information drilled into my brain. People don't always, like seeing others succeed. They envy you, they talk behind your back, they twist your story. So for me, it just feels safer to live quietly, to stay under the radar instead of being in the spotlight. Because here, everybody is watching your every move. And sometimes the best thing you can do is keep your cards close to your chest. One of the biggest lessons I've learned since coming back is the importance of affirming yourself and not being naive. And people here, I swear to God, they can trick you. They can scam you, threaten you, try to control you, act like they know better than you, or simply take advantage if you let them. You cannot afford to walk around blindly trusting everyone. That's what I was doing. And trust me, I stopped that. You need to learn how to read people, how to pay attention to their behaviors and their intentions. For me, it got to a point where I had to pick up the 48 laws of power. Yeah, it got that serious. And I realized I needed to step up, to be firm, to be strategic, to be intentional about how I move, because back home, kindness without boundaries can be mistaken for weakness. And if you don't stand your ground, someone else will decide where you stand. Let me start off this section with a public service announcement. Do not go to the Central African Republic unless you are from the country or work for an NGO or an international organization. Otherwise, it'll be a waste of your time, of your resource, of your money, of everything, because there's nothing to see, nothing to do. It's hard to say, but I have to be honest. And I remember I was joking with some family members and I told them I cannot believe I left one of the most advanced countries in the world only to find myself here. Infrastructure and daily life in the Central African Republic come with challenges. And by saying challenges, I am actually being very nice. Power cuts, internet issues, water shortages are part of the reality. And to get around those issues, you end up investing in your own home and turning it into your main hub. That means solar panels for electricity, a water reservoir for running water, Starlink for, and thank you Elon Musk, for reliable internet. But all of that comes at a cost. And the reality is not everyone can afford to set themselves up like that. Another big thing I've noticed is the lack of entertainment. For kids and for adults alike, there just aren't many options. Most of what you see are bars and restaurants, and that gets repetitive very fast. Children often, they're left with nothing to do outside of school. There are no parks, no activities to really engage them. And I know that because I have nieces and nephews, that I've took care of when I was there. And it's just so disheartening. And adults also, they kind of fall into the same routine. You go out, you eat, and you drink. That's pretty much what you can do. Boredom sets in very quickly. And I don't know, you start to realize how limited the choices are and the quality of your life, the leisure part of your life is just non-existent. Again, I'm an introvert, so I'm fine. I'm fine with being by myself. I'm fine with, spending time with myself, reading books and listening to music or trying to meditate or to journal, stuff like that. So the slow life in the Central African Republic is something that I can truly enjoy. But apart from that, there just is nothing enticing, nothing stimulating that is happening. And that is such a shame. Let's switch gears and start talking about money. The salary difference is the first thing that hits you when you return. Manager, office professional, whatever title, it doesn't matter. People in meaningful roles at local companies in Central Africa just don't earn what their counterparts in the US or France do. Take Cameroon, for example. A typical manager makes around 740,000 CFA per month, which is roughly $1,100. That is above the national average. Some earn closer to 540,000 francs CFA a month, about $800. In the Central African Republic, salaries are even lower. Average pay hovers around $530 a month. And these figures obviously are for local professionals working for local companies, not expat on NGOs or international contracts who often, let's just be honest, earn in dollars and live on entirely different scales. Why the gap, you may ask? Well, smaller company budgets, unstable currencies, and economic pressures across the region. That's usually the reason why. And if you've lived abroad and you know what these roles usually pay, adjusting to the reality of a paycheck here can be a real wake-up call. And once you get over that shock, you notice another big difference. The gap between people who earn in dollars or euros, such as remote workers or freelancer, anyone making money online, and those who earn locally. If you're bringing foreign currency, your money obviously goes a long way, but only if you live like a local. And by the way, what does that even mean, living like a local? I used to wonder how people here could survive on salaries of 100,000 or 200,000 CFA a month. That's barely $150 to $300. Then I started paying attention. When you visit the markets or you just watch daily life on the streets, you notice vendors selling breakfast. It could be bougie, beignet, a plate of local food for almost nothing. People aren't shopping at supermarkets for imported goods. Their eating habits, their entertainment, their whole rhythm of life are structured differently. That's how they make it work. And the moment you start acting like you are still abroad and you want to go to fancy restaurants, you want to eat imported food, you want to go to shopping malls, you want to have a gym membership, your money disappears just as fast as it would if you were living in France or in the US. It all depends on the lifestyle that you choose to maintain. And let's be honest, things are expensive. If you want to maintain a certain standard of living, you're going to pay the same price as abroad. The same price, even more, sometimes more. Grocery, food, entertainment, anything imported, it all adds up very quickly. So when people tell me, oh, life in Africa is cheaper, I shake my head. Because you guys have no idea. Again, it really depends on how you live. If you move back to, let's say, start a business and you want to succeed, you will need to lower your expectations and cut back on lifestyle expenses so your money can stretch. But if you are already financially set, then be prepared. Living in Africa with a Western lifestyle will cost you as much as living abroad, sometimes even more. So keep that in mind. Now, yes, if you eat, if you shop and entertain yourself like a local, life becomes way more affordable. For me, I naturally decided to eat local food. It's something I had been craving for a long time, so I killed two birds with one stone by feeding myself like a local and staying away from all the guilty pleasures, the snacks, the cheese, the cookies. Not only did I save money, but I also saved my health. Eating local helped me lose weight, and it reminded me of how much I love our food. Why don't people just turn on their local switch? Because it is freaking hard. Once you've been conditioned by years of a certain lifestyle, switching back isn't easy. And what's even harder than changing your habits is dealing with the cost of appearances. When you come back from abroad, everyone knows. And with that, I believe, comes a certain pressure. You feel like you have to prove something, prove that your years outside of the country were worth it, prove that you're doing well, quote unquote. And that can be quite dangerous because if you start spending just to show an image, you can lock yourself into a lifestyle you cannot actually sustain. I've seen it happen, people stretching themselves thin just so others won't whisper. The truth is, if you care too much about what people say, you will always end up paying a price that goes beyond money. If you are earning in dollars here, would you adapt to a local lifestyle or would you keep your old habits? Let me know in the comments. When it comes to business opportunities, places like the Central African Republic actually have enormous potential. There is so much missing, so many services that do not exist yet, which means the field is wide open to anyone with the right idea. If you have money, if you have a solid plan, if you have endurance, if you're a daredevil, and you have actually, a few good connections here and there, then yeah, you can make it work. The demand is here. But. The lack of infrastructure and the weakness of the legal system make things complicated. Yes, there are laws on paper, but in practice, they're not always applied or respected. And that makes it really hard to do business because, what if someone cheats you or breaks a contract or owes you money? The justice system probably won't protect you. And add to that corruption and endless red tape, paperwork that stalls unless you grease the wheels, if you know what I mean. And suddenly the road to success feels a lot less straightforward. And then, of course, there's bureaucracy, but I feel like that's almost everywhere. Processes, they take time. Well, maybe not in Korea, but yeah. Processes, they take time. Paperwork gets lost. The rule, they change depending on who you're talking to. But the truth is, if you know the right people, rules, stuff like that, you can usually navigate around it pretty smoothly. It's less about who knows you and more about who you know. The better your network, the more access you will have. And honestly, that can make or break your experience here. Me, like I said, I've been away for 20 years. Obviously, I do not have a network of people to rely on. But I have a dad, I have siblings who have a network. So what I can potentially do and what I've done is to piggyback on those networks and have them introduce me to people who could be potentially useful to me. So that's also a strategy that you can put in place if you don't have a network and you don't have the time to build your own network. Just because there is space for opportunity doesn't mean that it's easy to navigate. You need patience, you need strategy, you need resilience if you want to survive in that environment. I will most likely do an entire video just on this topic because there is a lot more to unpack when it comes to doing business on the ground here. Thank you so much for watching this podcast style video and sticking with me until the end. I've shared a lot about what life has been really like since coming back, but honestly, my journey is still unfolding. I still have a quarter and a month to go in 2025, and there's plenty more for me to learn about life in Central Africa and about doing business on the ground. So let me throw the question back to you. Would you ever give it all up to start somewhere else? And if yes, what would you leave behind and where would you go? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, to subscribe, and share it with someone who might be thinking about making a similar move. And until then, take very good care of yourselves. Bye.